All right, y'all. I fasted for 40 days and my wife changed. This is from Vincent A. Casey Sr. on YouTube. I originally saw a clip on TikTok and it's been on my list to watch this video. So let's get into it.
I fasted 40 days and my wife changed. And no, I wasn't fasting for her to change. Yes, I was also fasting for my marriage too, not necessarily for her or for me, but because we were having conflict that was continuous. And so God put me on a fast, and originally the fast was supposed to be from Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It was a 3-day fast. When I got to Sunday, which I thought was the last day of the fast, God said, you're going to fast until next Sunday. And so the 3-day fast turned into a 7-day fast. When I get to the following Sunday, God said, you're going to go until next month on the 15th. And now I'm thinking like, Lord, like, come on now, like, what are you doing? But at the end of the day, I made peace with it, because if God was calling me to this fast, then I had to change my focus on what I would gain more than what I would lose. And so during this 40 days, I would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and I would pray for hours. I would go to work, I would get off work, I would go back into prayer for hours. I spent a lot of time in the word. I spent a lot of time in prayer. I spent a lot of time just seeking God and just surrendering myself to God. And during this time, there were moments where my wife was throwing a fit. She felt like she was being neglected. She felt like certain ways I wasn't showing up for her. And it really was frustrating me, because I want to be there for my wife how she wants me to be. But I also want to be obedient and submit to this fast how God is calling me to submit. And so I remember praying. I remember crying out to God one night. I'm like, Lord, all I want to do is what you told me to do. And God said to me, just like Nehemiah told Sanballat, Geshem, and Tobiah, God said, why must the work cease that you come down to her? He said, you keep doing what I told you to do, and I'll deal with her. I still loved on her. I still showed her attention. I still showed her affection, but I was busy still. I still had to work, and I still had to do my daily functions. But when I wasn't working and doing some of the things that I needed to do so our house could operate like it's supposed to, during this 40 days, I would say 85% of my time was either spent in the word, spent in worship, or spent in prayer. I was like Jacob. I was going to wrestle with God until he spoke to me, until he gave me clarity, until he did something that changed something that was happening in my life. I would say probably about 3 days after the fast, my wife came to me and she apologized. She apologized for some things that had went on during the fast, some things that had went on in the last 6 months, some things that had went on in the last year, or even since we was married. Like, she apologized for so many different things. And I would say probably the first 20 days after the fast, she apologized at least 10 of those days. And I got to the point where I'm like, babe, you ain't got to apologize. Like, this stuff, I wasn't holding it against you. Yes, it was affecting me, but a lot of the things that she was apologizing for was ways that I felt, but I never articulated to her. But because I submitted to God, because I submitted to the fast, because I stayed the course, even when it got hard, even when it got frustrating, even when it looked like my own house was in disarray, God dealt with my wife, and she apologized to me day after day after day after day. And after it was all said and done, after the apologies finally subsided, my wife was a whole new person. When she was in her feelings or she was upset, she articulated herself in a healthy way to let me know how I was affecting her. She no longer projected her feelings onto me. I saw my wife getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, 5:30 in the morning, so she could read her word, so she can get into the presence of God. I watched my wife be more intentional about her love and her support from me. Like, my wife became a whole new woman. There were so many times that I realized that doing this new version of her, that I was expecting the old response, that I was expecting her to show up like she used to, and having that expectation for her to do that when she met me with something different, like, it blew my my mind. I continuously encouraged her and continuously had to tell her out loud, like, baby, you different. Baby, you handle your emotions different. I see you feel some type of way and you regulate your emotions better. The way that you've been doing self-care and sowing into yourself, the way that you have been intentional about you, I can see that same intentionality and that love towards me. Like, baby, I love that for you. I love that for us. I fasted for 40 days. And my wife changed. We was having some of the same conflict over and over and over and over again. And God took me to the scripture where the disciples went to Jesus because they tried to cast out a demon, but they couldn't cast this demon out. And so they called Jesus to come cast out the demon out of this man. And Jesus cast the demon out. And the disciples said to Jesus, why weren't we able to cast this demon out? And Jesus replied to the disciples. He said, some things only go by fasting and praying. And so he showed me that the enemy had his hooks in our marriage. The enemy had his hooks in certain ways that he was attacking my wife, in certain ways that he was attacking my mental and the viewpoint that I had against my wife. But it took that 40-day fast to break the hold, to break the chains and what he was producing in our marriage. And so I say that and I give this testimony just for you listening, because you feel like things ain't changing, because you feel like he's still acting the same, because you feel like she just don't get it. Well, maybe you need to get your flesh off of display. Maybe you need to go fast. Maybe you need to be like Jacob and wrestle with God until he breaks the strongholds off of your marriage, until he changes your perspective so you can give your person a clean slate. The Bible says the weapons of our warfare are not carnal. And so there are a lot of us that oftentimes try to fight battles in our flesh, try to fight battles in our own strength and our own will, when the battles need to be fought in prayer, when the battles need to be fought on our knees, surrendered to the altar, so God can have the final say and so he can get the glory out of the situation.
Wow. Wow. That was good. Listen, this hit home for me because I'm doing a marriage Bible study every week. Last week, me and my wife, we led it. And I think this upcoming week, in a couple of days, it's supposed to be Elliot. And then after that, it's our other friend who's going to lead it. But he said a few things. Now, obviously, the most obvious is the obedience to continue the fast, even though it didn't make any sense. Even though he's asking God, why you got me out here doing this, continuing to fast, but I'm going to submit, I'm going to listen to you, and I'm going to be obedient. That's the most obvious thing that stood out, right? And that's the hardest thing for a lot of us. For me, I know is that's the hardest thing, is like, just do what God's telling you to do consistently and watch the results start to change. Watch your circumstance start to change. Watch the confusion shift to clarity. Just do what God is asking you to do consistently. That's step number one, right? Also, why are you fasting in the first place? Why are you fasting in the first place? There should be a clear objective. The ultimate objective is to focus on God and to get your flesh out of the way, as he was saying towards the end of that video. Focus on God, get your flesh out of the way. And when you're fully focused on God, he'll give you that clarity that you're looking for, and he'll give you the specific mission and the items that you need to focus on. And then he'll handle what he is going to handle. In this case, it was the marriage, helping to restore the marriage, helping to restore the union, helping to get both of them focused back on what really matters. And you know what I like what he said? He said his wife was a whole new person, right? She was bringing things up to him, and her method of communication completely changed for the better. And some of the things that she was bringing up to him and apologizing for were the same very things that were on his heart that was bothering him, but he just wasn't saying. But she was apologizing and addressing those things in a healthy manner, right? And I love that he said this. He said that he was encouraging her. He was encouraging her. He was highlighting the good that was happening, that was taking place, the positive aspects of the communication. He was highlighting that. Because oftentimes I feel like we always focus on the negative, because that's just easy for us to focus on the negative. especially when it comes to the context of our spouse, it's easy for us to default to our flesh and we just go into autopilot and we stack up all these things that we don't like. Oh, I don't like how you leave, the butter out. I don't like how you don't be, throwing your trash away or whatever it is. Like, you fill in the blank. We stack up these things that we don't like and we focus on the negative as opposed to choosing to highlight the positive. But at the same time, you got to address the stuff that is bothering you. And you have to leave space for your spouse to address the stuff that's bothering them as well. And that's what it sounds like is what happened. The last thing he said, or the last thing that stood out to me, is he said, get your flesh off of display. Get your flesh off of display. That was a dope testimony. Like I said, it hit home because I'm doing this marriage study. And last week, me and my wife had to teach on empathy, which is actually very hard for me because I was telling her it's hard for me to feel the same things that you're feeling because it's not my reality. Like the struggles and stuff that she is dealing with on a daily basis, that's not always my reality because we have the same mission, but day to day, our walking orders look different. But then something we learned, which was very interesting, is that people say that oftentimes being empathetic, people focus on being empathetic when negative emotions are happening, when somebody's sad, when somebody's upset, when somebody's hurt. But you don't really think about being empathetic from the positive aspect. So when your spouse is excited about something or happy about something or looking forward to something, we forget to be empathetic in those areas as well. And we just kind of brush those off. So we were teaching about being empathetic as a whole and really just sitting in that emotion with your spouse, whether it's positive or negative, and sitting in that emotion and really trying to step into their reality and feel that emotion with them, as opposed to just always trying to fix it. And the example that I loved was, you look at Jesus and Lazarus. Lazarus is dead, right? His sister comes running up to Jesus. She's bawling, crying. What did Jesus do? He sat with his sister, Lazarus' sister, and it says Jesus wept. Jesus sat in that emotion and didn't immediately go to try to fix it, which he could, because Jesus is God in the flesh, all powerful. Jesus could have easily said, why are you crying? Like, look, he's up. Like, go, you know what I'm saying? Go hug your brother. He's up. He could have easily did that. But Jesus said, no, I'm going to feel this with you. And I'm going to let you know that I get you and that I understand you. I'm not going to try to rush to fix it. I'm not going to try to rush to a solution. But first things first, I'm going to feel this with you. I'm going to let you know that you're seen and that your emotions are felt by me as well. And then obviously he fixed it and he did the miracle. But I thought that was beautiful. Anyway, let me know what y'all think. Get in my comments, like this video. I'm out, y'all.